we used to think hormones were dangerous. Well, we didn't, then we did, now we don't again.
Dr. Kelly Casperson is a board-certified urologist, a leading expert and advocate for women's sexual health and hormones, and the author of the new book, The Menopause Moment.
If anything else helped bone, helped decrease dementia, helped decrease breast cancer risk, why aren't we studying the absolute bananas out of this stuff?
She's also the author of the best-selling You're Not Broken, which helped reframe how women think about their sexual health.
There is no bar at which any level of suffering is a justification for treatment.
Welcome. We're thrilled to have you here. In your first book, You're Not Broken, focused on women and sex. What inspired you to take it a step further with the menopause moment and explore this chapter in women's lives?
Yeah, so I have a chapter in the first book in You're Not Broken called Maybe It's Menopause. And because I'm a urologist, so I treat all of the pelvic health issues that happen because of hormones going low. And I was actually worried because I'm like, maybe the younger women aren't going to read it because I've had this chapter about menopause in there. And then I was like, wait, hold on. We all need to know what's coming. Whether this is you right now or not, you need to know. Like, we know about puberty and we know about pregnancy. Like, so I put it in there, and then people kept giving me feedback of like, thank goodness you had a chapter on menopause in there. Like, now it makes sense. Now I understand. Now I can explain this to my partner. And so I got a lot of positive feedback about that chapter.
Things like this, it's just sort of the normalizing of the conversation is so critical, and it sort of becomes, the basis of tracing symptoms, which I think is really important. You write that when menopause is one day, which I think is so important and, helpful, that the pre-game and the post-game are all part of it. Like, the event of menopause is one day, but actually you're kind of in it in the run-up, and you are in it for the rest of your life post that day. Tell us about this.
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody has their preconceived notions about what this is. And so I feel like you really have to start by like defining things so we can all know what we're talking about the same thing. And that's really important. And when people say menopause, what do they mean? Right. And by and large, what people mean is the profound state of low hormones. But that's not actually what menopause means. Menopause means 1 year with no natural periods, right? And then everything's post-menopause and everything's pre-menopause. And so to realize like this term that came up, hundreds of years ago when all we could observe was periods. We didn't know what ovaries did. We didn't know what hormones were, right? So we're using a word that's really old because it was something that you could actually see and measure.
And I think it's sort of, the language becomes problematic. It must make you crazy when women in their 50s say, I don't really have any symptoms. I don't have, AKA I don't have hot flashes. So I'm good. And I educated women who are in my friend circle who are very well informed. I hear them say this. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's I'm done with menopause. I'm done with menopause. It must make you crazy.
I think they're fed it by the medical system, because I'll blame the medical system and not the women. Yeah. So it's this kind of false narrative that we created to be like, are you suffering enough to deserve treatment? Because remember, we used to think hormones were dangerous. Well, we didn't, then we did, now we don't again. So it was kind of this like, you had to suffer enough to justify the treatment, but now we're in this preventative health phase era. So the women who aren't suffering, they're like, can I still get treatment? And we're like, hormones are FDA approved for the prevention of osteoporosis, right? You can't feel your bones thinning. So it's really opening up this conversation to be like, there is no bar at which any level of suffering is a justification for treatment.
It's sort of like these traditional markers are sort of somewhat meaningless. The constellation of symptoms and how you feel is sort of the bigger marker.
I think it's education, right? Again, what's happening is not the end of your periods. That's a symptom of the thing that's actually happening, which is profoundly low hormones, because we are now amazingly, wonderfully outliving the lifespan of the ovaries. We replace eyes when we can't see. We get glasses. We get hearing aids. We replace hips. We replace heart valves. We replace every body part except for the ovary. So like the ovary is the last one where we're like, it doesn't make sense that we would replace everything else, right? So the ovary is like the last bastion. And I think education goes a long way, because they're like, oh, I don't have hot flashes, but man, I have such a short temper now and I cannot sleep, right? And being like, no, the mood symptoms are very big in perimenopause, and antidepressants are not the level, like the gold standard for treatment. Hormones are.
Define biopsychosocial health and what happens if we don't optimize it.
Yeah. So biopsychosocial is basically what the humans exist in a biopsychosocial world. And to break it down, bio is biology. As far as menopause goes, we are outliving our ovarian function. Ovaries are only a certain size. There's only so many packets that make hormones and eggs. We outlive that, right? So that's our biology. The psychology is our view of aging, right? And our interpersonal relationships and our moods and all of that goes along with that. And then sociology is what society tells us we should do, right? So that, don't just go through things because it's natural, or being frail as you age is inevitable. It's kind of like all these beliefs that we grow up in. Mm-hmm. And so it's like we have to take care of all three. We have to take care of our mental health, our physical health, and we really have to question our current society and saying that life's over or it's too late, or, the lack of importance of our elders, frankly, in this culture is awful. There's many, many cultures that to live this long is to have wisdom and is to teach and is revered. And in our culture, man, I'm going to do what I can to fight for that cultural change. Like, I can't just give you hormones and have you be sloppy everywhere else. Right. if I could throw on an estrogen patch, but like if you're not exercising, you're not eating right, you're not working on your, mental health and challenging societal beliefs, and like the estrogen patch that only helps the bio part.
Absolutely. I think that, at least our audience and a lot of women are well versed on, at least, to a large degree or to a greater degree, on the benefits of estrogen and progesterone. I think testosterone, which you have been a great champion of, and a great educator. Let's start with, what does testosterone do for women?
So ovaries make testosterone, testicles make testosterone. Testosterone's on the cholesterol pathway towards estrogen, meaning you have to make testosterone to get to estrogen in how it's made in our body. Most people don't know that. So you have to start. I went through medical school and didn't know that. So testosterone is incredibly important. It is anabolic, and anabolic is not a bad word. The doping weightlifters gave it a bad word, but anabolic literally means to build. So every day we are wearing down the wear and tear of our body, and we need things to actually rebuild things, right? Keep our bones strong, keep our muscles functioning. If we had our wish, we would call these things not sex hormones, but neurohormones, because they work so profoundly in the brain. And the biggest thing that, testosterone gets pigeonholed as the libido hormone, which means sex drive. So first of all, estrogen's a great libido hormone too. There's plenty of women who are like, put my estrogen patch on, I'm good to go. But where is libido? Libido's in the brain. Libido's a mood. The other thing that libido is motivation towards something. So to say it's only for libido is missing the point of, no, this is mood enhancing and it's motivation enhancing, where people say I have more energy. So we're really kind of, I want to say, dismissing this as just this libido hormone, and forgetting that libido is a mood. It helps with energy. It helps with motivation. It helps with muscle mass.
And what are the most surprising benefits beyond increased libido?
I can remember things better. I can do math better. My relationships better. I'm more calm at home. I'm sleeping better. I'm finally seeing the gains that I'm working so hard for in the gym. And the biggest one is I feel like myself again. And that's a soft, squishy thing, because as doctors, we like to measure stuff, right? How can I tell that you don't feel like yourself? But when we do something and you come back and you say, I feel like myself again, that is the best day. This is not well studied, but it's like, if anything else helped bone, helped decrease dementia, helped decrease breast cancer risk, why aren't we studying the absolute bananas out of this stuff?
Why do we need to go up against this? Because it is a refrain. And also I think it speaks to women feeling like the suffering conversation. Well, generations for time immemorial, women have suffered through menopause. Why should I be any different?
So let's not forget that living to 84 as a society is not natural. Antibiotics aren't natural, and they increase life expectancy by 26 years per person. Antibiotics blew longevity out of the water. and we have clean food sources, clean water. We live in buildings, so we're not freezing and overheating anymore, right? We're really good at trauma care. We're very good at cancer care. So all of these things that humans have created to improve our lives, you can argue aren't natural. And then we take this one thing that happens to women if you happen to live long enough, and we say that's the thing that we shouldn't do. Like, let's not replace your teeth then, because that's not natural.
Yeah, it's not
right?
natural.
It's called the naturalistic fallacy. It's actually a psychological construct. And what it is believing that because something is in nature, it's therefore better, more holy, more pure, to be revered. I break it down so much in my book because I really need women to get over this one piece of our physiology that we refrain from helping when we refrain everything else.
With so much wellness washing in the culture, how can women tell the difference between science-backed advice and marketing?
Yeah, it's very hard. First of all, I'll say it's very hard. This is not easy. Most physicians will say their credentials up front. If it's really hard to be like, what is this person a doctor in? Right? Or is this person even a doctor? If it's hard to find the credentials, that's another warning sign of like somebody not being forward with, I'm speaking on this because I've had a ton of training. But I mean, women are suffering. The medical system is working hard to catch up, but is not caught up yet. Women are looking for solutions. But, I always say, like, you shouldn't have to remortgage your house to take care of this. Like, the solutions tend to be pretty simple and pretty cheap. Hormones are pretty cheap. Exercise is pretty cheap. Eating healthy is probably the most expensive of all of those, but like doable. So it's like, if it sounds like you have to spend tons and tons of money for all these solutions, you're probably being sold something.
What are the pros and cons of defining menopause as a disease?
So if you, in the medical system, we are a disease focused system. Right. So if we don't label something as a disease, you can't bill for it. You can't code for it. You can't get a treatment for it. Right. So a lot of things we're like, let's get a label for these things. There is not a label for perimenopausal depression. Right. So we can't even study it, let alone say, hey, hormones should be first line therapy for this. So labeling something as a disease in the medical system makes it real. You can get research dollars for it. Right. So it's very important to have a label for these things for the economic and like realness of these things. Now, is something natural a disease? This is where you're going to get the arguments, because living 40 years without hormones is actually not natural. Right. But if you live in captivity, you will outlive your ovaries. And we know that people with low hormones don't do as well than people who have hormones.
And relatedly, for all of the wonderful findings of, WHI, of the Women's Health Initiative, all of those were obscured by the single finding that screwed hormones for women, for boomers, and and until very recently. So let's walk through all of the wonderful findings that have been obscured by the one bad finding.
Decreased risk of death between the ages of 50 and 60. I think in one chapter of my book, I'm like, hormones decrease death. End of chapter. Like, what do you want more data than that? Right? Like, and also decreases bone fracture, but like not dying seems to be the biggest thing. So decreased risk of mortality between the ages of 50 and 60 if you're on hormones, primarily due to preventing deaths from heart disease. We know it decreases the risk of bone fracture, even in people who don't have osteoporosis. 30% decreased risk of colon cancer. They have decreased risk of depression. In the estrogen alone arm, they had a significantly decreased risk of breast cancer. If you got breast cancer and you were on hormones prior, you had a decreased risk of death from breast cancer. So hormones help insulin sensitivity, insulin resistance. So I'm like, if we made these drugs now, they would have Super Bowl ads. They would, because they're like they're so amazing, right?
You have some very wonderful prompts about how to ask for what you need.
Yeah. So testosterone in women is the Wild West because we don't have a validated FDA approved product. That will blow the doors wide open on this conversation. That will get you your insurance approved, right? So remember, here's America. The FDA says we don't practice medicine. Insurance companies say they don't practice medicine. but insurance companies won't cover what the FDA doesn't approve. So now your doctor and you decide testosterone is right for you, but your insurance doesn't cover it. And that's why when I went to the FDA in July on the hormone panel, and I asked them for specific things. We need a female dosed FDA approved product to validate this. Number two, it needs to be approved for the same reason men get it approved for, which is low hormones or hypogonadism. Because if our FDA approves it for low libido or hypoactive sexual desire disorder, most insurances won't cover sexual health. So you'll have an FDA approved product and you still won't have your insurance covering it because they approved it for something that our insurance has exclusionary riders on. I want the FDA that when they approve a female dose testosterone, do not have it regulated by the DEA like male testosterone is. I do not think female dose testosterone is a drug of abuse. To answer the second part of your question, how do you talk to your doctor about it? Bring in books, there's an international guideline for testosterone for low libido. That's just a really nice document. It's free online. Print it out, bring it in. But really an FDA approved product is going to be what we need to really truly validate this because it is currently still the Wild West. And you're dependent upon doctors who know and doctors who don't know or are afraid.
To that point, what are the tests that are helpful or not helpful for estrogen, progesterone, testosterone?
Yeah. So the whole question of do I get labs? How much do I get labs? What type of labs? It's a active conversation amongst the experts. In perimenopause, so that's before your periods end, your hormones are fluctuating or going offline. Some people call it reverse puberty. So if you check labs on a Tuesday in May, it's going to be very different from a Thursday in June. This is a change of fluctuating hormones. So the problem, I like checking labs. It's very validating to a woman's lived experience, but you must know how to interpret them. And I see a lot in perimenopause. A woman will say, I got my labs checked. My doctor said they're fine.
Right.
So now I can't get treatment or I can't try hormones. And we know in perimenopause, the definition is fluctuating hormones. And now let's talk about postmenopause. Let's say it's been 3 years since no periods. You come in and you're like, should I get my labs checked? And I'm like, well, I know what your labs are. They're so low, you haven't even had periods for 3 years, right? So it's like, I check them to validate. I think, when a woman comes in and asks for something that's cheap and it causes no harm, why not validate her experience? But I must know how to interpret them.
But also your hormones certain hormones might be within normal levels and you still might be symptomatic.
100%. Like normal doesn't mean optimal.
So what is genitourinary syndrome in menopause?
A mouthful. Genital urinary syndrome of menopause was coined to describe all of the changes in the pelvis as a result of lowering hormones. The only problem with that nomenclature is that you can get genital urinary syndrome of perimenopause. Again, there's nothing magical about having periods. Hormones are low also in perimenopause. But symptoms include overactive bladder, recurrent urinary tract infections, pain with sexual intercourse, changes to orgasm and sensation.
You are really outspoken about alcohol, especially for women.
Yeah.
What happens?
So I haven't had alcohol in 4 years. The reason that I started on this journey, number one, I was kind of looking for the next personal growth challenge, truthfully. People are like, who are you? And I'm like, that's just my brain. But so I was looking for the next challenge. But the other reason is women were coming in so afraid of estrogen as a reason to not take it because they were worried about breast cancer. And they have no idea that alcohol is independently associated with like 8 cancers, one of them being breast. We think 10% of breast cancers in this country are due to alcohol. A completely unnecessary modifiable risk factor, 10%. That's pretty big. And so to me, I was just like, God darn it. If women are so worried about breast cancer, why aren't we doing everything we can to decrease our risk, which includes don't drink alcohol? And since, I started about 4 years ago, the alcohol-free lifestyle has really taken off as far as brain health, sleep health, longevity, muscle mass, insulin resistance. And so I didn't talk publicly about my journey for a while. And then I started, every once in a while, I would just like drop a news report about like what was coming out with alcohol. And women they started saying like, hey, I stopped because of you.
Yeah. I definitely perked up. I mean, as I started following you. And it is really helpful to hear. But women also metabolize alcohol differently than men. So there are differentiators there.
Yeah, women tend to have a higher adipose tissue, so it takes longer to get the alcohol out. And I think the other thing people don't realize is like when the liver's working to detox you from alcohol, it can't do anything else. So it's basically like putting your metabolism and your insulin resistance and like detoxing everything else on hold, because it's like, hold on, I've got a load over here. I got to work on this first. So like for insulin resistance and your metabolism, it's like, and just stress on the liver. So many people have liver issues, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is actually a very silent epidemic right now. Is like, don't stress this liver out. You only have one of it.
When women who are on the fence about going on hormones go to their doctors and they're easily talked out for whatever reason, what would you tell them?
We have the great privilege in America of getting second opinions. So that's nice to know. And feel free to get a second opinion. This is your healthcare and nobody's more in charge of it than you are. Remember, we have 2 decades where we did not get trained because of the WHI. This is not the doctor's fault. They literally removed it from the medical curriculum. Doctors are getting trained at a rate and a speed now faster than we've ever had it. Because when 5 women come in a week asking for help, you start paying attention and being like, hey, what can I do to help them? So to me, I'm like, it is currently rapidly changing. So don't give up hope that you have been dismissed. Get a second opinion. See if your friends are having success. Go see your friends, friends doctor. Who's doing testosterone in your community that's doing it safe and doing it in a good fashion. So it's like, use your network to find it. And there's amazing online clinics now, like telemedicine. So, it's really helping our rural women who might not have a center that's devoted just to access for menopause. So it's changing fast. And the other thing I would say is there's no award given out for suffering the most. You don't need to be like the suffering champion of your neighborhood. So that's what I want to tell women is like, get your education, read the books, listen to the podcasts, be prepared. And if at first you don't succeed, try again.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. I have been looking forward to this day.
Thanks for having me.